Oh, it's now law.
And with that, President Joe Biden signs the Inflation Reduction Law into law. Now, it's calling climate, health, and tax legislation historic. This evening, we're digging into what's included in that act and giving you more context to the headlines, telling you what it can really do for you. You'll see various claims from supporters, from opponents as well, on social media about what the Inflation Reduction Act actually does. Abby Llorico verifies what we know about the act.
For supporters, typically on the left, the bill is being celebrated as a big win for environmental efforts and healthcare access. But critics, typically on the right, say it's full of overtaxing and overspending. So what's really in the bill? Our sources are Bill Hoagland from the Bipartisan Policy Center, Chris Edwards from the Cato Institute, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, and the bill itself. When it comes to taxes, the biggest change is that large corporations, earning at least $1 billion annually, will have to pay a 15% minimum tax. It also enacts a 1% tax on stock buybacks, when a company buys back its own shares. The plan would also boost funding to the IRS.
By $80 billion.
Most of it going to enforcement will allow for there to be an increase in collections.
With health care, the bill allows for Medicare to negotiate prices for some drugs, and it creates caps on drug costs for those on Medicare.
It puts a cap, which would be immediate, on the out-of-pocket expenditures that the individual has to pay at $2,000.
The bill also extends financial assistance until 2025 for many enrolled in the Affordable Care Act, which would have expired at the end of this year. The legislation also involves environmental changes, offering incentives and tax credits for businesses for being green. For example, those that produce or invest in wind or solar. And it would also offer credits to consumers, like those with clean energy expenses, such as solar panels or who buy electric vehicles.
It's really a cornucopia of energy and environmental subsidies.
Perhaps the biggest question here has to do with inflation and what the bill will actually do to curb rising costs. The Congressional Budget Office scored the bill, and remember, there are a lot of different factors at play here impacting different groups in different ways. But ultimately, analysts say the bill will have a negligible impact on inflation in the next year.
All right, so that's all what's included in the Inflation Reduction Act, but what does it mean for you? So we're going to start with the Medicare recipients.
It is great news, and it's something that we've been working toward for a very long time.
Medicare experts say the Inflation Reduction Act will cap out-of-pocket spending at $2,000 for most beneficiaries. It will also increase the low-income subsidy, allowing more people to qualify for government help to pay for prescriptions. And one of the biggest changes will be a cap on insulin costs. It will be capped at $35 a month for Medicare beneficiaries. All right, it's important to note that the original Inflation Reduction Act included an insulin price cap for people with private insurance as well. That version was not able to pass through the Senate, so the cap only applies to folks with Medicare. The Center for American Progress and Independent Policy Institute says the bill will save the average American household about $500 a year when it comes to electricity costs. It will also help people switch to cleaner energy options with rebates for green upgrades, and even those who don't make a switch should see lower electricity and natural gas prices. The center says total spending on oil could go down by 25% over the next decade. Now, the Inflation Reduction Act will also cut carbon emissions. The Center for American Progress says emissions are projected to be 40% below peak levels by 2030. This put the country's climate goal of cutting pollution to half of peak levels within reach. The Inflation Reduction Act also invests $437 billion in clean energy, climate action, and affordable health care. It raises $737 billion through tax reform, prescription drug reform, and stock buyback fees. Now, that means that the act is not only paying for itself, it also leaves $300 billion to reduce the federal budget deficit. The thing is, you might not see the effects of the Inflation Reduction Act in the next coming year, maybe not even for the next few years, but it will be in effect, making changes that will hopefully make a cleaner living, less expensive world for future generations.